military veterans in for 30 years and more that are going to have their life's work stripped away because they will not obey, they will not comply, they will not submit. Submit is the word for Islam. You know, that's the thing. U.S. Navy sailors who refuse COVID-19 vaccine will be expelled. The Washington Post types on behalf of the Democratic Party. Just extraordinary. U.S. Navy said on October 14th, on Thursday, yesterday, that personnel who refuse to be vaccinated against COVID-19 will be expelled from the force ahead of the November 28th deadline for the injection. Expelled deadline injection. With COVID-19 vaccines now mandatory for all military members, the Navy has announced plans to start processing for discharge those who refuse vaccination without a pending or approved exemption. You know, if you're giving religious exemptions, medical exemptions, you already have immunity because you've been infected already. If they were being reasonable about it, that would be one thing, but they're not. Because as I understand it, overwhelmingly, you apply for an exemption and they tell you no. And they say, obey, submit. It was the first clear indication by the Pentagon of what would happen to service members who reject the vaccines. Again, listen to the language here, which became mandatory at the end of August. Until now, military officials had avoided answering what would happen to those who refuse the vaccine. So this is quite extraordinary. The Navy's 350,000 people roughly, and just extraordinary. Extraordinary. If all the services take the same hard line that the Navy is taking, it risks losing as many as 46,000 troops. Though presumably more will accept vaccinations before the deadline because, you know, there's a gun to their head and they're going to take everything that you've worked for away from you. But it's not just the military. Oh, that is particularly repugnant what they're doing. The TSA. Let's go to the TSA for a moment here. TSA, Transportation Security Administration, says 40% of employees are unvaccinated as deadline looms. Now, the deadline for them is November 22nd. For the Transportation Security Administration, airport security, all that good stuff, 40%, 4 out of 10. That's extraordinary. That's the same as the abortion rate for African Americans, just coincidentally. The Transportation Security Administration says 4 in 10 members of its workforce, including screeners, remain unvaccinated against COVID-19 as its deadline looms. I told you the story. My best girl and I were in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and we got to the Atlanta airport, and there were, I kid you not, in the TSA pre-line. We're a TSA pre-people. And the TSA pre-line, I kid you not, 500 people in the line. We finally got to the front of the line, and the nice lady who was behind a glass sneeze shield like she's the salad in a salad bar, and had a mask and had rubber gloves and had spray bottles to spray her rubber gloves after she held my driver's license. She told my best girl moments later because she heard that there were people in line, you know, gasping and saying, "What is with this?" And the nice lady, the TSA lady, and she was nice, the nice TSA lady said, "You think this is bad? Wait till November 22nd, she said. She said, a whole lot of us aren't getting the shot, all right? And now there are news articles in obscure journals. This is a local TV station that I'm reading from because the Washington Post and the New York Times don't cover this stuff. But the deadline for civilian government employees, it says workers here, but I changed it to employees because I'm an American, not a communist, to be fully vaccinated is November 22nd. Now, does that sound an alarm? Does an alarm go off there with anybody? Because, you see, Thanksgiving this year is November 25th. It's 3 days after the deadline, and I believe that the busiest travel day of the year, every year, is the day before Thanksgiving. The busiest travel weekend is Thanksgiving weekend. And since Thanksgiving is Thursday. It's always on a Thursday, November 25th. The deadline is Monday, November 22nd. You can expect more chaos and anarchy because of the draconian, authoritarian Democrat Party, which isn't really democratic at all. So this is a looming catastrophe right there. 40% of TSA. Just amazing. And also, headline, staggering number of U.S. troops remain unvaccinated as deadline approaches. The number of Navy SEALs, special operators, that percentage of Navy SEALs is just off the charts, okay? And they're mandating because they love mandates. All right, now, what's going on in Chicago? Chicago Police Union president is telling members not to comply with vaccine mandate. Now, for them at this point, it's largely a matter of collective bargaining power and their belief that the city and the mayor's office are in violation of their collective bargaining agreement. And I have some audio. One of the heads of the police union said that the city has told them to go to hell. All right, because they have issues. Well, I've had the virus. I have immunity. Go to hell. I have religious objections. Abortion, fetal tissue, vaccines. Go to hell. They don't care. But the police union says they will file temporary restraining order to try to stop the city from doing what they're doing. And let's go to the audio because some of this stuff is absolutely crazy. Now, here's the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police president, John Catanzara. John Catanzara was on the Fox News channel and no place else because CNN is just a tool of the Democratic Party and they don't cover the news. They're just a cable television channel that does Democrat Party press releases. Here's John Catanzara, Chicago Fraternal Order of Police president, talking about what the situation is that is looming in Chicago.
It's safe to say the city of Chicago will have a police force at 50% or less for this weekend coming up. That is not because of the FOP. That is 100% because of the mayor's unwillingness to budge from her hard line.
The mayor's unwillingness to budge from her hard line. Here is John Catanzara.
The reality is we have a profession nobody else wants to do right now. They cannot get anybody to go into this police academy. But yet here she is vilifying the police yet again in a city that has over 185 expressway shootings this year alone, over 280 kids shot this year alone. And she acts like there's nothing else going on but this COVID.
Nothing else going on. Also, theoretically, the November 22nd deadline is to be, the standard is to be fully vaccinated, which means you have to have your second shot by November 8th. And, of course, you need a team of lawyers to sort through all this stuff. That was, of course, two separate interviews with John Catanzara on two different shows. One, he had an actual microphone. One, he was on a FaceTime call or something like that, explaining the difference in audio. And just extraordinary stuff. Now, the Chicago alderman, and he's a former Chicago policeman too, Anthony Napolitano, no relation. I've used audio from the Chicago alderman before. He seems like a regular guy. He seems like a real person. And Napolitano, again, alderman is like a city councilman. They call him alderman in Chicago. Your city, they'd probably call him city councilman. Like we've got that anti-Semite who thinks the Rothschilds caused snow so they can buy cities, something like that. But that's our city council in Washington, D.C., which is why we really shouldn't have statehood ever. Anthony Napolitano, Chicago City alderman and former police officer, talking about what's going on with the police department and the mayhem that is now looming in Chicago.
You're going to see a lot of officers that aren't going to go through with this mandate. They want to celebrate their American freedoms and decide how to treat this virus, which they all do take very serious. And they want the opportunity to decide what goes in their body. They don't want to be forced to get this vaccination. And it's going to have a huge effect on the crime in the city of Chicago.
Well, they may have objections for whatever reason, but the party, capital T, capital P, will steamroll them and crush them because they have power. And in the left winger to English dictionary, It says that power is something to be abused at every possible opportunity. Anthony Napolitano, Chicago City Alderman, talking about, and this is just off the charts insane. The criminals, of course, and again, he's talking, what is it, 183 shootings just on the highways, they call them the expressways in Chicago, the freeways, the expressways in Chicago. 183 shootings and all the kids shot and the murder skyrocketing. The biggest one-year jump in homicides in the United States in 100 years of record keeping. Absolute anarchy. They've had to do take these medieval measures, raising the drawbridges over the Chicago River to keep the mobs of medievalists. I mean, honestly, it's like out of Braveheart or something in Chicago. Here's Anthony Napolitano.
Criminals know what's going on in the city. They watch the news. They see that there's going to be a lack of officers on the street, and they're going to capitalize on it. They do all the time. Even with our standard workforce of police out there, they're capitalizing on crime in this city. This is going to be pure melee unless the mayor rescinds this mandate.
Unless the mayor rescinds this mandate, anarchy, chaos, crime, absolutely crazy. Now listen to this one, because this is just the craziest thing ever. Criminals are making arrangements right now because they know the police are going to be half the police force that you normally see. Time for the criminal mobs to take advantage, and the Democrat Party has stood up and organized on Facebook and Twitter, which is fine with Facebook and Twitter, the criminal mobs for looting and arson and the attacks on the police and so on. Anthony Napolitano.
There is actually rumors, and I give that to you lightly. There are rumors that there's trucks lining up to loot the city.
Oh my God!
That's what this is getting to. I was at a function yesterday with police officers, and that's some of the intel that's come out already, that there's been U-Haul trucks rented already, ready to go and start hitting stores, especially on the Mag Mile, our treasured Mag Mile here, and go after some of these unwatched stores, because the police department is going to be depleted.
They are lining up to rent the U-Haul trucks, intelligence gathering, and they're planning on looting the Magnificent Mile, which is the most deluxe and splendid mile of Michigan Avenue in Chicago, with all the high-end stores. Oprah has her multi-million-dollar condo there, and the Hancock building is there, and the Drake Hotel, and all these beautiful places, the most beautiful, wonderful part of Chicago. And he says that the intelligence indicates that they're renting the trucks already. And I was talking to my friend Seton Motley about this today, and he said Chicago criminals are renting all the U-Hauls to get ready for the looting. And what's happening there is they're really screwing the normal people in Chicago who want to rent the U-Hauls to move out of the city. That's a little tough. Anthony Napolitano, Chicago City Alderman.
They just want the opportunity to deal with this virus in their own way. They don't want to be told what they have to put in their body. And I think that's, as an alderman, we offer vaccination clinics. We're trying to get everybody vaccinated. But at the same time, those that don't want to be vaccinated don't want to be told, as an American, you have to put this chemical that doesn't keep you from getting the virus, doesn't keep you from spreading the virus, and doesn't keep you out of the hospital, and doesn't eradicate the virus. They don't want to have that put in their body. They want some other options. They want more information. This is just times, they've been going through hell for the last year and a half. They're just preparing themselves. They're all going to hold the line.
Now, mandates, medical treatment mandates. What if you already had the virus? What if you have natural immunity? The Israeli study shows that it's like 27 times safer if you've already had the virus versus being vaccinated alone. And, I got vaccinated as soon as my best girl was vaccinated, pretty much as soon as we could. I think getting vaccinated is the right thing to do, but I don't think that my views should be imposed on you and the entire country and the world, particularly when the science has changed so dramatically again and again and again and again. But, I got vaccinated. So that was up to me, wasn't it? I think that was up to me. Yeah, that was up to me, and I made my decision, didn't I? Yeah. I hadn't had the woo. I don't have Lyme disease. I don't have an autoimmune issue. I don't necessarily have a strict religious objection. But I am an American, so I respect people whose views differ from my own on important matters. Call me old-fashioned, call me crazy.